Hey crafty cuties, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to tell you some tips and tricks for paper making because I have been mass making this handmade paper to include in my June patron pen pal mail. And so I have honestly learned so much over the last few days because I'm needing to make 100 of these sheets, and it's a lot, guys. So I first have some tips and tricks just to share with you, pretty quick. And then I'm going to just continue making paper and doing a voiceover where I'm going to answer questions that I had asked you guys on a bunch of my different social media to ask me questions. And so I am going to start with tips and tricks, and then I'll get into answering questions. The first thing I wanted to mention is I ended up going back to Dollar Tree to get a few of these because since I'm making so many, it's really nice to have a few different ones so that I can flip the paper over but keep it on the mesh for a few minutes while I'm working with another one, and that way I can kind of keep going, and it helps so much. But I also ended up getting duct tape, and this helps so much. If you guys remember in the first video, I tried using packaging tape because it was all that I had, but the duct tape makes a world of difference, at least for me. The next thing that I wanted to mention that I found helpful is, I don't think I specified on the first video which side to put the screen over, and for me, I found it to work the best and be the least, like, I guess, messy. If you put the mesh over the side that's the flattest, so you can see the screen is actually on the bottom side here, and so then you have this lip right here, and so when you're dipping it into the water and you come up, there's no lip up here for the paper to get kind of stuck in those crevices. So definitely be sure to put the mesh over like the flattest edge of the frame that you can. The next thing, I actually have been using the glass that, you know, was a part of the picture frame to lay my paper on before I transport it to outside to dry. Now, that's my next tip, is if you can do this on a sunny day, guys, absolutely do it when it's sunny out, because the paper is drying in like 10 minutes for me, and that is so nice. It also dries really great. Okay, next up, if you have ink sprays, I'm going to show you how I like to use this when I get into it, but this is making such a pretty design on the papers, and what I'll do is I'll spray this on straight on top of the water right before I'm scooping the mold and decal through, and then you get more of an ink splattered look, I guess, and some of them look kind of like ombre. And I'm definitely having issues with, sometimes I go a little bit too fast and then part of the paper breaks, but don't count those as a loss because you can still cut this up and use it for tags or whatever. The other thing, this time around, for whatever reason, my paper is a little bit more thick. It's more like a cardboard, and you can't fold it as easy. And so I just want to say that just experiment with the different types of paper. The first time that I made paper, I was mostly using book pages, but this time around I'm using scrapbook paper mixed with the napkins that I've been using to soak up water, and so I definitely think it makes for a thicker consistency. So depending on what you're going for, just experiment and try different papers, and you know, then you can get an idea of what works best for the results that you want. So like I just mentioned, I have been including the paper towels that I'm using to sop up the water, and I'm including that into my pulp mixture. And so again, that's actually awesome for recycling, so I can actually use it because it makes the whole process a little bit quicker for my liking. And then you're gonna end up with a thicker paper, or at least that's what's happened to me with the paper towels I'm using, and these are pretty inexpensive paper towels that I'm using, so you might also get a different effect depending on what kind of paper towel you're using. So let me quickly take you outside and just show you what it looks like when I'm drying them outside, and then I'm going to get ahead and just start going, and I'll be talking about the questions, and we'll get started. The questions I'll be answering today mostly pertain with the business side of selling and YouTube and you know, selling junk journals. So I want to tell you guys, I'm not a pro. I'm going to answer the questions the best I can that I can, you know, give you going off of the experiences that I have. But it's going to be pretty general answers, just to let you know. The first question from Joy: I want to start selling the things that I make for junk journals. Could you give us all the tips and tricks? Well, this could probably be an entire video on itself, but I'm going to try to just keep it straight to the point. Number one, you have to figure out, where are you going to be listing these things? Are you starting to, are you going to list them on a space like Etsy or Shopify? So you need to figure out what's your selling platform. Or maybe you are planning to just try and sell them on Instagram. I would say if you don't plan to be doing selling a ton of things, like maybe a journal every now and again, or maybe like a few different junk journal kits or something like that, you could easily do it just on Instagram on your own, rather than an Etsy or a Shopify. But if you're planning to sell a lot of things and you're going to need to figure out, keep track of your stock and everything like that, you're going to need to look into all that goes into opening up a shop. But I have to make this a very important first thing to keep in mind. You have to keep in mind that you're going to have to pay taxes on this. And maybe this is not my place to put that out there, and probably a lot of you already know, but this isn't something I thought about when I first started selling, guys. And I have almost felt like I was kind of screwed over the first couple of years, because I sold a lot and I did not realize and think about how much taxes were going to cost me. So you need to look into all of that. And this is not to discourage you, but you have to plan for everything that comes along with selling. And then you're going to have to figure out, who are you selling to? Are those people following you on your platforms? Where are you advertising your items? On Facebook, on Instagram? And do you have the time to be very consistent? If you want to make sales, you have to be consistent about where you're going to be advertising. That could be on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, in person. It really just depends. So those are all things to think about. BB's Closet Creations. She says, how do you typically package a junk journal out to ship so it avoids damage? Well, to be honest, I usually use depending on the size, I will usually wrap them in some type of either cloth, like paper packaging, bubble mailer, or not bubble mailer, sorry, like the bubble plastic, and then I will put them usually in a bubble mailer. And I think only one time I have had something end up damaged, and I've sold hundreds, so that's what I use. If it's a larger journal, I will use a box. How much do you know how to charge for your journal? That's a tough question. Almost all of these are like an entire video, but I want to try to just go over them quickly right now. I came up with my pricing probably 4 years ago when I started selling. There's a whole formula that goes along with figuring out your pricing. You can't just copy someone else's pricing at all. You have to look at how much you are putting into supplies. You have to figure out how much you want to pay yourself for your time, but you also have to look at how much is someone going to pay for your journal. How well known are your journals, because that plays into price as well. But you also cannot undersell yourself. That is one huge mistake. You cannot undersell yourself. Not only is that bad for you, but it's bad for the entire community of journal sellers, or small shop sellers. And then you kind of have to do what works for you. It might not be following the formula exactly, because you might have to tweak it a little bit, but there's a lot that goes into it. She also said, who's your inspiration that got you started in, it cut off, but I think in journaling. Honestly, one of my biggest inspirations was Johanna Clow. I always think I'm saying her name wrong, but that is absolutely who my inspiration was when I started junk journals. Michelle says, I am interested in starting a shop. I'm wanting to make journal and journal supplies to sell, like tea-dyed paper, tags, handmade paper. Would you suggest Etsy or another platform? To be honest, guys, I'm working on moving away from Etsy. But to start out, I think Etsy's good. There are a lot of fees, but if you go look and compare it to other shops around, the fees are low compared. But again, there's so much that goes into deciding. If you are starting out like she is, I absolutely think a platform like that is going to be really good for you because it's a lot to learn. And so I would say to start out in something like Etsy, and if it's working well for you, then down the line you can always move to your own website or something. I would not even suggest trying your own website if you are brand new to selling and everything, because you first need to know how it's going. Are you going to, have the sales like you are hoping? And so I would definitely look into Etsy or another shop, compare and see what works for you. Compare the fees and what do you think is going to fit best for your shop. Also, with these items, do well. Yes, I think that junk journal supplies like that would do very well. But again, you have to keep in mind that you will be driving all of your own customers. Etsy does not do that for you. So you're going to have to be consistent about posting and advertising your items on something like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, something like that, maybe Pinterest. And you will have to be consistent. You will have to stick to it. You cannot do it for a month and then be like, okay, this isn't working, and then try in 2 more months and be like, okay, it's still not working. No, you have to take it serious if you want it to work, and it can work. A lot of people think that it's all oversaturated. Someone's already thought of this idea, or someone already sells this. That doesn't matter. Your stuff is unique and it can sell, but you have to do the work. It is going to take a lot of work, but it can happen. Pamela says, what would be your best advices before selling your first journal? Well, that would be make sure that you have a good price. That would be make sure you keep in mind how are you receiving that money. If you're just selling like on Instagram or over Facebook or something, are you doing it through PayPal? Are you doing it, how? You got to figure that out. You also have to figure out how much are you charging for shipping, and what shipping supplies are you going to be using? Because if you're using shipping supplies that you have to pay for, you need to put that in to your pricing formula as well. I think I missed a question a minute ago. Someone also said, where do you get your shipping supplies? I forgot to answer. I mostly use USPS shipping supplies, but I also get a lot of my basic packaging from Amazon. Carmen asks, what platform do you recommend selling handcrafted items, and how do you figure out what to charge? Man, I wish these were, I guess I kind of already answered it, but again, it's hard for me to recommend Etsy, to be honest. I'm not happy with how Etsy's going for me, but I already have the customer base. I know that I can move over to my own website and my customers will follow. I have a platform here where I am lucky enough to have people that want to buy my items. If you have a YouTube channel as well and you already have a following, or you have, a large following on, not large, it doesn't have to be large at all actually, but you have to have a following of people that are interested in these items, then I would say that, Etsy, again, I think Etsy would be a good place to start out, but not long term. And how do you figure out what to charge? Again, we're going back to that formula. I'll have to link that below. Mommy in the City says, hi Jessica, how do you edit your videos? Well, I use iMovie, and I don't do a lot of editing to my videos at all. I try and film my videos and to where I can just plop them in the editor and call it good. I don't have to take a lot out, and I don't have to do a lot to it. So yeah, that answers that. Millie says, I absolutely love your videos. I too want to know how to get started in selling journals I make. Okay, I think we talked about that. And also, what do you use for making YouTube videos? Oh, I think I just answered that. The lighting. So I would recommend natural lighting if you can. If you can film by a window, that would be best. And it is overwhelming, I know, but you just got to try to get started. I would practice trying to film some videos at home. You can use an iPhone, or it doesn't have to be iPhone, sorry. You can use a phone that has a decent camera on it. I just started using a real
camera, and it's not even, it was like a $500 camera, but I used my iPhone before that, and so I would totally just practice at home, see how it looks. Okay, and she said, and also, how do you price the journals? Okay, back to that formula. There's so much that goes into it. Pink Paper says, I have a question about where do you get your shipping supplies and what shipping company do you use? I highly recommend USPS because you can also get all of your shipping supplies from there for free. You can go on USPS.com, guys, and order your shipping supplies right to your door for free. So yes, I highly recommend just doing USPS if you can. Amy says, if a person was really good at making junk journals, are they easy to sell, worth the time and money, and do they sell easily? No, they're not easy to sell, but it's possible. Again, you have to have a following of people that are interested in journals. If you just have a personal Facebook page, you can try selling to those people, but in my experience, a lot of people are going to get annoyed because they're there to be your friends. So I would have a designated social media account like Instagram or TikTok or even a Facebook page, and you have to start getting people to follow you. You can start following people that are into junk journals and whatnot. And so no, I don't think it's easy, but I think it's very possible. Is it worth the time and money? I guess that's a loaded question. I think it is, but I've been doing this for a long time. I think that it definitely can be for you if you have high expectations, but you also know that it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of consistency. Consistency is the number one thing. You can't just post about it one time and then be like, why isn't my journal selling? People like to see the process. You gotta, I'm gonna be listing these journals next week. You have to take it really serious, I think, in my opinion. Do they sell easily? Again, they might not sell easily, but that shouldn't keep you from doing it. Oh my gosh, I think I got through all of them, guys. Okay. I know that I wasn't able to specifically go into detail about all of these. I hope it was a good starting point. I can try really hard to do one full video where I go into the specifics of all of this, but again, I'm just basing it off my experience, and so that's not really going to maybe help you out too much. If I didn't answer something that you wanted to know more about, you can leave it down below and I'll try to get back to you. But again, I hope this was helpful. I want to be realistic. I don't want to tell you it's going to be easy to sell journals because it's not. It's possible, and all of you can do it. There is a place for your work out there. It's not oversaturated. You do not have to have a huge following. You don't need thousands and thousands of people. You need the right following. You need followers who are interested in those things. Even if you have 50 to 100 people that are loving junk journals, that is enough to get some sales going. Sure, it might be easier the more you have, but you don't have to have thousands of followers on any of those places. But you do have to have a platform to sell. And you do need to know that you have to be consistent about doing it. Okay, guys, I am finally going to let you go. I'll see you later. I hope you have a lovely day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
One risk to drying your papers outside is that sometimes little birdies like to poop on your paper. Like, what?